I feel like so often when we play mobile games on our phones, especially for hardcore gamers, we're often let down by their simplicity or how little depth they actually have. So I wanted to make a list of the best Android games that I've played for hardcore gamers. Now, per usual, I did stick with one game per franchise, but let's get right into this. At number 15, we have VAINGLORY. MOBA games can be one of the more complicated genres with a ton of depth and strategies. They, however, also translate to phones relatively well with their point-and-click mechanics, and the absolute best MOBA game on phones as of this moment is VAINGLORY. If you're a competitive gamer and you like MOBA games, you may want to download VAINGLORY right now. You may have heard about Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, but one of Square Enix's best JRPG games is secretly The World Ends With You. You play as Neku, who tends to not like other people too much, and he's a bit of a lone wolf. He, however, finds himself in another dimension where he is forced to play the Reaper's game, and must stay alive for 7 days while doing all kinds of different missions. The problem is, he'll have to partner up with somebody else, which is where the story becomes really interesting. You meet several memorable characters, and the combat is unique with you swiping across a screen in different motions to use different abilities. It's a fun game both in terms of story and in gameplay. If you want to play a game with hilarious sarcasm, the Bard's Tale may be a great option. It's an isometric RPG that not only has fun gameplay, but you'll find yourself laughing as you play one of the most unbecoming heroes in video games. You play as the Bard, and he finds himself in a situation where he must save the world. The problem is, the Bard has such a personality that you'll find yourself seeking for all the glory of saving the world, rather than actually saving it just to be a good guy. MACHINARIUM is an absolute must-play for point-and-click adventure fans. The art style is unique and beautiful, which is probably the first thing most people notice about it, but it also has a great story, though it never actually has any dialogue, but just rather how the story unfolds through the world and the characters inhabiting it. Also, the puzzles are done extremely well, but it never seems too difficult that it's unfair thanks to its hint system. Portal Bridge Conductor may not quite be Portal 3, but it does translate to phones very well. It also has that hysterical Portal humor with GLaDOS patronizing you constantly. Your main job is to build bridges, which allows the construction workers to get from point A to point B. And while the game starts off easy, the difficulty does start to ramp up as they introduce more and more tools, and it may truly stump you while you're trying to get all of your construction workers to safety. I do recommend a stylus, but this is a fun game nonetheless. At number 10, we have the classic PC RPG PLANESCAPE TORMENT. This is often viewed as the best RPG ever created with some of the best storytelling ever done in any video game. You wake up as the Nameless One with no recollection of who you are, other than a strange skull guiding you and a message scratched into your back. You then have to explore the strange world of Sigil, and it's got that classic Dungeons and Dragons feeling, and you can choose how you want to play in a plethora of choices you can make. Unlike most isometric RPGs though, PLANESCAPE isn't so much about the combat per se, but rather its primary focus is the story itself, and in fact you can avoid most combat situations by talking and negotiating your way through different scenarios. It also helps that the characters are rich and colorful. It just does such a wonderful job at the world building, and I promise, you aren't going to play another game like it. I would have actually ranked it even higher, but I do think a stylus is essential for the best way to play. The text can be very small, and it's very dialogue heavy, so if you don't want to read a wall of text, you may want to steer clear. If you do like that type of stuff though, it's a fantastic game and a must play for any RPG fan. Monument Valley has such a unique art style and gameplay mechanic done with illusory puzzles. It allows you to shift and manipulate different monuments to complete a puzzle through illusion. It's a unique gameplay mechanic, but I think what makes this game so memorable is not just the puzzles, but in just how well it all looks and feels. The music puts you in a sort of tranquil mood, and then as you shift the monuments, there is this kind of satisfaction as each monument connects in several different planes. The puzzles are done well enough, but it was never really too difficult either. It's just an overall relaxing game and definitely one of the better mobile games. The legendary Tim Schafer once again hit it out of the park with Broken Age. Broken Age is a point-and-click adventure game with plenty of clever puzzles, a great and humorous story, and a lot of unique and bizarre characters. Of course, it being a Double Fine game, you come to expect their wacky humor, but this is one of my personal favorite point-and-click adventure games of the last decade. It has beautiful hand-drawn art, everything is voice acted and very well done at that, and I found myself laughing on multiple occasions. The puzzles never feel unfair, but it does require critical thinking from time to time. But one thing that makes Broken Age unique is that you actually have two different characters that you can control. Not only does it allow you to see different perspectives and two very different lifestyles in the two young protagonists, but it also allows you to switch to the other if you're stumped on a puzzle for too long. There are certain genres that just feel right on phones, and with Broken Age, I think it feels absolutely perfect. When I saw Knights of the Old Republic on phones, I wasn't convinced it would be very good, but surprisingly KOTOR actually feels pretty good. The controls are easy enough to adjust to, and it's the same addictive gameplay as ever. BioWare does a phenomenal job at giving their players choices and how they want to approach dialogue, but their choices don't end there, as you can create several different character builds depending on how you want to play. This is BioWare at their best, and if you're into Western RPG games, this is among the best ever made with plenty of choices, and of course being in the Star Wars universe, there's a ton of lore there. Broken Sword Director's Cut was probably the first game on phones that I fell in love with. It has an old school art style to it, but it's so well animated that it shocked me, almost like a 90s cartoon, which, well, that makes sense considering Broken Sword was originally released in 1996. The story is well written with humorous dialogue among characters, and both your main protagonists are very interesting. The story is about a murder mystery in Paris, and it's a point-and-click adventure game, so expect a lot of logic-based puzzles and some pretty great ones at that. Honestly, Broken Sword is one of the best point-and-click adventure games ever made, and it feels perfect on mobile devices. The entire Dragon Quest franchise is very good, and actually most of them are available on Android devices, but if I had to choose just one, I would choose Dragon Quest V. Not only does the controls fit well with phones, but Dragon Quest V has an emotional and memorable story following the protagonist Luca from childhood all the way to adult life. It's an emotional roller coaster, and you really start to feel for the characters in the game. It is a JRPG game with turn-based combat, and the monsters' animations are done super well. If you like JRPG games, you really can't do much better than Dragon Quest V. Stardew Valley will be one of those games that I think can last 10 plus years and still have a loyal fan base, because yes, it's that good. Stardew Valley is part RPG, part farming. I've legitimately seen people put well over 1,000 hours into this game because it's so good and addicting. It is a life sim, so you wake up and you tend to your crops and farm animals, but you also can socialize with the community, find a person to date, marry, and even have kids. You must live your everyday life making money, but you can also explore dungeons, level up, and there's just so much you can do in Stardew Valley. And if you want a game that you can pour hundreds of hours into, Stardew Valley is probably that game. This was a tough choice for me because there are several Final Fantasy games that are done really well on mobile phones, but I ultimately decided to go with Final Fantasy Tactics because to me it feels perfect on mobile devices. I do think it's best with a stylus, but it's a tactical strategy RPG and has a great story that's kind of reminiscent to the popular Game of Thrones. I think if you like these type of games, it's a must-have, but really you could go with any Final Fantasy game on Android and you wouldn't be wrong. There is a reason so many people love the franchise so dearly. There's no story in video games that have moved me quite the way that To the Moon has. It is by far the most emotionally draining game I've ever played, and if you haven't played that game, you will cry while playing it. To the Moon is a point-and-click adventure game, but in terms of gameplay, it's just average. However, because the story is so transcendent, I couldn't help but rank it so highly. Honestly, I wish To the Moon would get a movie because more people deserve to witness this masterpiece. It's about two scientists who are able to change a person's life, but only in their head. They use a machine to enter the most important points in their life and then change them, which gives them the illusion in their brain that they somehow had a different life. But just prepare yourself for an emotional roller coaster. At number 1, it had to be none other than Minecraft. Minecraft has sold well over 100 million copies by this point, and for good reason. It's a fun game for both adults and kids with its Lego-like world, and it even feels good on phones. You can play in creative mode where you can build your wildest dreams, or you can play in survival mode, which will have you fighting off zombies, creepers, other monsters, and even hunger. It's a great game where you can truly be creative and pour countless hours into. Anyways, that's it for this episode, but if I missed some of your favorite games, let me know in the comments below. But if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Peace out.